Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a really interesting story today, pulled straight from a Buddhist commentary. It's the Dhammapada commentary specifically.
Hmm.
And it's about this monk, the Bahubhandika Bhikkhu, which, well, it basically means the monk with much luggage.
Right. And at first glance, it sounds pretty simple. Maybe just a story about not getting too attached to things in monastic life. We have this monk who, well, he seems to have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
And this leads to questions from the other monks. And eventually he ends up in front of the Buddha.
But this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? Because the Buddha, he doesn't just deal with the luggage situation.
No.
He brings up this amazing past life story, completely unexpected.
Mhm.
It involves princes and a water demon of all things.
A very specific water demon, yeah.
Apple.
And it all ties into these qualities called Devadhamma, divine qualities.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, right? To really explore this whole narrative, the monk's situation now, this incredible Jataka story the Buddha tells, and figure out how they connect.
Exactly. We want to understand what the Buddha was really teaching about. Well, what truly makes someone pure and what proper monastic conduct looks like. And we're sticking just to the details from the sources you've provided for us, guiding you, our listener, through it all.
Okay, so let's start with the monk himself. The guy with all the possessions, he wasn't always a monk, was he? The sources say.
No, he wasn't. He was actually a pretty wealthy householder, lived in Savatthi, and he decided to ordain after his wife passed away.
Right. And it seems like maybe some of that, householder background or at least the access to resources kind of came with him. His life after ordaining wasn't exactly simple living right off the bat.
No, just putting it mildly, he apparently used his old connections, or, well, wealth. The text says he had buildings put up just for him, inside the monastery grounds.
Buildings. Like what?
His own living quarters, for one, a fire hall, even a storehouse.
A storehouse. For a monk. Wow. And I bet it wasn't empty.
Definitely not.
Mm.
Sources say he filled it up with supplies, things like ghee, oil, provisions. And get this, he wasn't even cooking for himself. He had his old servants come in and prepare food for him. Apparently, he was quite particular.
Okay, this guy really stands out then.
Oh, yeah. He was specifically known for having much luggage and many requisites. It even mentions things like having different clothes for daytime and nighttime. And maybe because he needed the space, he chose to live off in a more remote part of the monastery.
All right, so the scene is set. You've got this monk living a bit separately, clearly has way more stuff and comforts than usual. What happens? How does it come to a head?
Well, naturally, some other monks are doing their rounds, touring the monastery,
Yeah.
checking things out. And they stumble across his area, and they see something that makes them stop.
Let me guess. A lot of laundry drying.
A whole lot of laundry. Robes and coverings, just piles of them drying out. Way more than seemed normal for one person.
Okay.
So they asked him, "Are all these yours?" And he just quite plainly said yes, they were.
And the other monks, I imagine, were probably thinking,
Yeah, the sources say they were concerned. They questioned him directly. Like, look, the Buddha only allows 3 robes.
right.
And they pointed out, you ordained in the teaching of the Buddha someone who taught wanting little, who lived wanting little. This just didn't square with that. His abundance seemed like a direct contradiction.
Makes sense.
So they did what monks often did back then. They took the issue and the monk to the Buddha.
Okay, so now he's in front of the Buddha. How does that encounter go down?
Well, the Buddha just addresses him directly, calmly asks, "Is it true? Do you really have all these requisites, all this stuff?" And the monk says, "Yes, it's true."
He owns up to it.
He does.
Yeah.
And then the Buddha asks the million-dollar question. Why? Why have you become so, well, possessed by things when my teaching is all about wishing for little?
That's pretty direct. A real challenge. How does the monk take it?
This is where it gets wild. Instead of, maybe reflecting or trying to explain, the sources say he got angry.
Angry.
Yeah, like his thought process was, oh yeah, you think I have too much? Fine, I'll show you simple. And right there in front of everyone, monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, the whole assembly, he just throws off his outer covering.
No way.
Yep, stands there with just one robe on, a very dramatic, almost performative gesture of, see, I'm simple now.
Wow. Talk about missing the point. That seems so contrary to, humility or anything. But the Buddha, he doesn't get angry back, does he?
No, not at all. His response is amazing. It's gentle, but incredibly powerful. The text quickly says the Buddha offered him some encouragement first, almost like preparing him.
Okay.
And then he drops the bombshell. He reminds the monk right there about a past life. He says, look, in a previous existence, even when you were a Dakaraka, a water demon, you spent 12 years actively seeking Hariari and Atapa.
Moral shame and moral dread.
Exactly, those core ethical sensibilities.
Wait. Even as a demon, he was seeking virtue. For 12 years, that's quite a backstory.
It really is, and the Buddha uses that contrast so effectively. He asks them, essentially, why? Why, after ordaining in this noble teaching, would you stand here now, throwing off your robe in anger in front of everyone, and in doing so, abandon those very same qualities, Hiri and Otapa, that you sought even as a demon?
Oof. That's deep. He's saying the outward act of getting rid of the robe done like that was actually a deeper failure and abandonment of inner virtue.
Precisely. The public performance wasn't the point. The inner state, the lack of moral shame and dread in that defiant act, that was the problem.
That must have hit the monk hard. Being reminded of striving for virtue as a demon, only to be shown how he was abandoning it now as a monk. What happened?
The sources say it was immediate. Hearing the Buddha's words, something clicked. He had this realization. He reestablished his Hiri and Otapa right then and there.
So it calmed down.
Yes. He put his covering back on, paid respects to the Buddha, and just sat down, humbled.
What a turnaround. But imagine the other monks. Seeing all this unfold, the luggage issue, the angry robe throwing, then the Buddha talking about demons seeking moral qualities. They must have been totally lost.
Oh, absolutely. Completely bewildered. So naturally, they asked the Buddha, could you please explain what does all this mean? What was that about the past life?
Right. Which leads us perfectly into the deep backstory, the Jataka tale the Buddha shared.
Exactly. And this story takes us way back to Varanasi in a previous age.
Okay, lay it on us. What's the tale?
It starts with a royal family. The Bodhisattva, the being who would become the Buddha, was born as Prince Mahisa. He was the chief queen's son. And he had a younger brother, Prince Kanda.
Okay, 2 princes.
Right. But then their mother died. The king remarried, appointed a new chief queen, and she had a son too, named Prince Surya.
Uh-oh. I sense trouble brewing. A new heir.
You guessed it. See, when Prince Surya was born, the king, maybe in a moment of joy, promised his mother a boon, a favor, anything she wanted.
Risky move.
Very. Because years later, when Surya was older, his mother decided it was time to collect. And what she asked for was the kingdom for her son.
Ouch. Passing over the 2 older established princes, how did the king react?
Well, he refused at first. He apparently said Mahisa and Kanda were like blazing fires, powerful, respected, clearly the rightful heirs. But the queen just kept pushing.
She wouldn't let it go.
No. And the king started to worry. He saw how determined she was, and he became afraid that she might actually try to harm his older sons to get them out of the way.
A legitimate fear in royal courts, I suppose.
Sadly, yes. So he made a really difficult choice. He called in Mahisa and Kanda and told them, look, for your own safety, you need to leave the city, go live in the forest, wait until after I die, then come back and claim the kingdom.
Wow. Exile for their own protection. That's rough. Did they go?
They did. They paid their respects to their father, and off they went. But here's a twist. Prince Surya, the youngest one, the reason for all this trouble, he saw them leaving. He found out why they were going into exile, and despite being the catalyst for it all, he decided to go with them, voluntarily.
Really? That's surprising. Noble, almost. So the 3 brothers head into the forest together. What happens out there?
They journey deep into the Himalayas. At one point, they need water. So the Bodhisattva, Mahisa, sends the youngest Surya to fetch some from a specific lake nearby.
Just a regular lake. Seems unlikely in a Jataka tale.
Definitely not regular. This lake was under the control of a Dakaraka, a water demon.
Ah, there's the demon. Okay. What's its deal?
It had a special arrangement, apparently granted by Visavana, a deity. The demon was allowed to eat anyone who entered the lake, except those who knew Devadatta, the divine qualities.
So it's a deadly quiz show, basically.
Kind of. The demon would question anyone who entered. If you didn't know Devano, you became dinner.
Okay. And Surya, the youngest, just wanders in.
Yep. Didn't suspect a thing, just wades into the water. The demon pops up, asks him, do you know David Hama? And Surya, maybe thinking literally about things in the sky, says, sure, the sun and the moon.
Wrong answer, I presume.
Big time wrong answer. The demon declares, you don't know David Hama, grabs him, and drags him down into the water to its lair.
Oh, man. One down. What happens when he doesn't come back?
Well, Mahisa waits a bit, gets worried, and sends the middle brother, Kanda. Same drill. Kanda goes to the lake.
Does he know about the demon?
Doesn't seem like it. He goes in, demon appears, asks about David Hama. Kanda tries a different answer. He says, There are the four directions.
Also wrong.
Also wrong. Demon says, nope, you don't know either, and
Yeah.
drags Kanda down too.
Okay, now both younger brothers are gone. The Bodhisattva Mahisa must realize something seriously wrong.
Absolutely. When Kanda is also missing, the Bodhisattva knows there's danger at that lake. He's wise, right? So he goes himself. But he's cautious. He sees the footprints going into the water, but none coming out.
Smart observation.
He figures it out. This lake is held by a demon. So he arms himself, grabs a sword, bow and arrow, and approaches. But crucially, he stops at the edge. He doesn't go in.
Good move. Don't fall for the same trap.
Exactly. Now, the demon sees him standing there, not entering. So it comes out, but it tries to be clever. It disguises itself as a forester, like a woodsman.
Tries to lure him in.
Yeah, comes up to the Bodhisattva and says something like, "Hey, friend, you look tired and thirsty. Why don't you jump in the lake, have a drink, cool off?"
Does the Bodhisattva buy the disguise?
Not for a second.
Yeah.
He sees right through it. He knows it's a yaksha, a demon, and he confronts it directly. "Was it you? Did you take my brothers?"
Bold.
Yeah.
How does the demon respond to being called out?
It admits it. Says, "Yeah, I took them. I take anyone who enters the water who doesn't know Devadama."
Okay, so what does the Bodhisattva do? Fight it.
This is another fascinating turn. Instead of attacking, the Bodhisattva asks the demon a question. "Do you care about Devadama?"
Does it? A demon caring about divine qualities.
Surprisingly, the demon says yes, it does. So the Bodhisattva sees an opening. He says, "Okay, I can teach you. But," he adds, "I can't really give such a profound teaching looking like this, all dirty from travel."
Huh. Setting conditions for the demon, that takes guts.
How did the demon react now? It's truly remarkable. The demon doesn't get angry or anything. Instead, it basically turns into the perfect host. It cleans the Bodhisattva, bathes him, gives him fresh water to drink, adorns him with flowers, sets him up on a comfortable couch in a decorated pavilion.
Seriously, it pampers him.
Totally. And then it sits down respectfully at his feet, ready to receive the teaching.
From demon captor to devoted student in minutes. Incredible. Okay, so the Bodhisattva, all cleaned up and comfy, finally reveals the answer. What are the Devadhamma?
Here it is, the core teaching from the Jataka. The Bodhisattva recites this verse. Possessing Hiri and Ottappa, well-established in white qualities, peaceful and true men in the world, are called Devadhamma.
Hiri and Ottappa again. Moral shame and moral dread. Plus being established in virtue, white qualities, and being peaceful and truthful. That's the definition.
That's the key. And the demon is pleased, it gets it. And then, maybe testing the Bodhisattva's understanding, it says, "Okay, I'm impressed. I'll give you back one brother. Which one do you want?"
Oh, a test. Who does he pick?
He picks the youngest, Surya.
Surya, not Kanda, the older of the two captured. Why?
The demon must have questioned that. Seems like you'd save the elder.
It did question it. The demon immediately challenged him, said something like, "Wait a minute, you know the words of Devadhamma, but maybe you don't really practice them. Choosing the younger over the elder. That doesn't seem right. You're not honoring seniority."
Good point. But the Bodhisattva had a reason, didn't he? A deeper one.
A much deeper one. He explained the whole situation. He said, listen, the reason we're even in this forest is because of Surya, well, because of his mother wanting the kingdom for him. Our father sent us away to protect us from that situation, and then Surya chose to come with us. Okay, so how does that relate to picking him?
He explained further. If we go back, and people hear that the youngest brother was eaten by a demon in the forest, nobody will believe the full story. I will be blamed. People will reproach me, thinking I failed to protect him, especially given why we left. Therefore, he concluded, it's out of fear of that blame, that reproach, and here's the direct link back. It's out of Ottappa, that dread of negative consequences and moral failing, that I ask for Surya back. He's taking responsibility and acting to prevent future blame and suffering based on that ethical principle.
Wow. So choosing Surya wasn't just random or even just about Surya himself. It was a practical application of Ottappa in a really complex ethical dilemma.
That's brilliant.
It really is. And the demon sees this. It's blown away. It realizes the Bodhisattva doesn't just know the definition. He lives it. He embodies it. He applies it with wisdom. The demon is so impressed.
It lets them both go.
It lets both brothers go. Totally won over.
Fantastic. What happens then? Does the story end there? Not quite. The Bodhisattva doesn't just leave. He stays and teaches the demon more. Explains the downsides of being a yaksha, gets it established in the 5 precepts, basic morality.
He reforms the demon.
Pretty much. And then, protected by this now virtuous demon, the princes live safely in the forest until they hear their father, the king, has died.
And then they finally return to Varanasi.
Yes. And the Bodhisattva takes the demon with him. back to the city. He becomes king, makes Kanda the second in command, Surya the army commander, and he doesn't forget the demon.
What does he do for it?
He builds a special shrine for it, in a nice spot, and makes sure it receives regular, excellent offerings, acknowledging its transformation and its help.
What an incredible arc for everyone involved, especially the demon. Okay, so bringing it all back. How did the Buddha connect that whole epic tale to the monk standing there, the one who threw off his robe?
This is where the Buddha makes the explicit link, identifying the players across lifetimes. He revealed that water demon from the story. That was the Bahubhandikabhikkhu, the monk with the luggage, in a past life. Prince Surya, the youngest, became Ananda. Prince Kanda, the middle one, became Sariputta. And Prince Mahisasa, the bodhisattva, who taught the demon. That was the Buddha himself.
Okay, now it clicks. The monk was the demon who learned the value of Hori and Otapa directly from the Buddha to be. That puts his current tantrum in a really stark perspective.
Absolutely stark. The Buddha used that connection to drive the point home. He told the monk essentially, look, back then, even as a demon, you actively sought these crucial qualities, Hari and Otapa. But now, having ordained in my teaching, you just acted improperly, throwing off your robe in anger, abandoning those very same virtues in front of everyone.
So in that moment of confrontation, the real issue wasn't the number of robes he owned anymore. It was his reaction, his attitude, his public abandonment of basic moral restraint.
Exactly. The external act of defiance showed an internal failing. And this leads the Buddha right into the core teaching for the whole assembly, explaining what really purifies someone, especially a monk or nun.
He makes it clear it's not about the externals.
Crystal clear. The Buddha flat out states that simply getting rid of robes or doing other flashy ascetic things, that stuff does not make you a samancha, a true recluse, a genuine practitioner.
And he drives this home with another verse, right? Listing specific practices.
He does, a very pointed verse. Not nudity, nor matted hair, nor mud, nor fasting, nor sleeping on the ground, nor dust and dirt, nor squatting exertion, purify a mortal who has not overcome doubt.
That's a list of pretty hardcore practices some ascetics used back then. Can we quickly unpack what those mean, like squatting exertion?
Sure. They're all forms of physical austerity. Nudity is just, well, being naked, matted hair, like some sahus even today, smearing the body with mud. Fasting, nanasaka, means totally rejecting food. Sleeping on the ground, totally saika, is literally sleeping on bare earth. Dust and dirt, rajolaya, maybe letting grime build up or smearing it on. And that last one, kukokapatana, squatting exertion, was about doing intense practices while holding a difficult squatting posture for ages. Real endurance stuff.
Okay, so a whole range of intense outward physical disciplines, and the Buddha's saying none of these on their own actually purify you.
Precisely. The commentary explains it clearly. If you do any of these things, even perfectly, but you do them thinking they themselves are the path to purity or liberation, you're actually stuck in wrong view. You'll just get tired and suffer, and you won't achieve the real goal.
Because the crucial part of that verse is the end bit. Who has not overcome doubt?
That's the linchpin. The sources mention specific kinds of doubt, but the main point is the presence of fundamental doubt, doubt about the Buddha, the teaching, the path itself. If that doubt is still there, no amount of external austerity is going to purify you. It doesn't get to the root.
So the real path, the true way to purity, it isn't about how many robes you own or don't own. It's not about sleeping on the ground or fasting or any of that surface stuff.
No. This whole story combined with the verses hammers it home.
Yeah.
Genuine purity, real spiritual progress, it comes from the inside. It comes from cultivating those internal qualities, Hiratuke and Otapa, the divine qualities, and from tackling and overcoming those fundamental doubts about the nature of reality and the path to awakening, not from just changing your appearance or your possessions.
That feels so relevant for us, for you listening today. We live in a world that's often so focused on appearances, right? On judging by the outside, or thinking that just doing the external actions is enough. This story is such a powerful counterpoint to that.
It really is. And that aha moment, where the Buddha contrasts the monk's angry, defiant act now with his genuine striving for virtue as a demon back then, it's just brilliant. It shows so clearly where the real value lies.
Yeah, even a demon could recognize the importance of moral shame and dread. But the monk, in that moment, lost sight of it for a kind of, I don't know, public performance of simplicity.
Exactly. It wasn't genuine simplicity driven by understanding. It was a reaction. And it highlights why Hari and Atapa are called divine qualities. They're foundational. They're essential for ethical living, for purification, whether you're a monk, a layperson, or apparently even a water demon trying to improve.
And it shows the danger of just focusing on the externals. If you only worry about how many things you have or what diet you follow or what practices you look like you're doing, but you don't work on the inner qualities or tackle your own doubts, well, you're missing the whole point. You might even be reinforcing a misunderstanding.
You could be. It's like polishing the outside of a cup that's dirty on the inside.
Good analogy. Okay, so let's try and summarize the big takeaways from this deep dive into the monk with too much luggage.
Well, first off, this story is way deeper than just don't own too much stuff. It's fundamentally about the absolute importance of internal virtue, especially higher in a tapa, moral shame and dread, and the need to overcome core doubts. That's the real path to purity, not just external adjustments.
And the Jataka tale isn't just a cool side story, it's crucial context. It shows these qualities are universally valuable, sought after even by non-humans in past lives, highlighting their fundamental nature.
Right. And by linking the monk directly to the demon he once was, the Buddha powerfully illustrates that consistency in these inner virtues is key. A sudden, angry, public display of simplicity that actually abandons those core virtues is completely contrary to the path.
Okay, so building on all that wisdom from these sources, here's a final thought for you to reflect on. Think about your own life, maybe your ethics, how you are at work, your personal growth, even any spiritual practices you might have. How often do you find yourself, perhaps without realizing it, focusing mostly on the outward appearance, on the performance of an action?
Do you sometimes let the external act become a kind of substitute for cultivating the necessary internal state, like the intention, the understanding behind it? What does it really mean to be pure or ethical or well-practiced in anything you do? Is it just about doing the right things on the outside?
Or is the truly essential part that underlying inner state, the intention driving the action, and the depth of your own understanding? Where does the real substance lie in the external display or the internal quality, something to chew on?